Hi, and welcome to Phantasmal Farce's Adventurise, where we delve into the world of entertainment and see if we can pull an adventure out of our arse. Our aim is to inspire and to show, so long as you look, almost anything can be a tabletop adventure. So don't be intimidated, and let's see what we can stitch together. I'm Alan, and I'm the forever GM Macastrix of a group of players in Wales. I love casting my 4th level arcane eye over stories and seeing how they translate into adventures. In this episode, we will be adventurizing
Bushes of Love. Bushes of Love is a bad lip reading video that creates a song from the early scenes between Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker in Star Wars A New Hope. The plot of which revolves around Kenobi warning Luke about a chicken duck woman thing that ripped his father's face off and now likely waits for him in the Bushes of Love.
Opinionize.
Okay, good evening, Rod. How are you?
Well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to discussing Bushes of Love by the Bad Lip Reading fellows on YouTube. I'll go first, if that's all right.
Please.
With opinions. It is one of, if not the greatest song of all time. That is, of course, hyperbole, but in all seriousness, it is hilarious, as are all the Bad Lip Reading guys' videos. If you have some time to kind of surf YouTube, watching several of them is a good use of time. But it's a really catchy, solid pop song that could genuinely find itself, if it was released with humorous lyrics by a recognized artist, probably could find itself like on the top 40 maybe, or I can definitely hear it being played in the background of films. I as a song as well. It's catchy. You'll be humming it for a while after you hear it. Yeah, it's definitely playing to their strengths. What about you, Rod?
It's a good song. Yeah. Whether it's the best song, whether it's my favouriteest ever song, no, definitely not. No. But it is one of the best ones that the Bad Lit Reaping people have put out, and it is a little gem. I wouldn't say it's the best though, and I do have my favourites. But I'll keep my cards close to my chest in case we use it in a future episode.
We won't.
Well, it's seagulls then. The Yoda seagulls. I think someone's redone it with Baby Yoda now. I can't remember. I'll have to look into that a little further. But or I should say, the child. Yeah, I can appreciate the amount of effort and time that they put in to do it all. So yeah, it's a good song. Thinking out loud as to how it would be mechanized and all the repeated lines and everything. Yeah, it's good. It's the first time I heard it, it was laugh out loud and funny, and I think it's starting to sort of have diminishing returns now. But I can see why you chose it to be adventurized. It's got some hooks to plot.
Cool. So let's
mechanize.
Okay, so it's a short video. Is it about 4 minutes long? Probably should have put a note of how long it is, but it's not very long. It's only a couple of minutes. So we're having to stretch a lot of things out. There's not an awful lot to work with, because generally there's basically some bushes. The Bushes of Love of the title. A chicken duck thing with a woman's face, and some violence, and a woman that would probably like to honky tonk. I think those are the main elements. Have I missed, in your opinion, have I missed anything? The main points.
I mean, you said that there was. I disagree in what you say that there's only a few things that can be drawn from this. If time were unlimited, I would have lots to do about this one. But yeah, as for the main elements, you're right. There's only a few things that you could draw from it to make it your own or to keep it neutral. Whereas otherwise, it starts to clearly edge into the Star Wars side of things. Blue milk, moisture farming, crispy bodies by the door. Well, not so much that one, but it can, it does, knowing its context, does reference Star Wars quite heavily. But yeah, the chicken duck thing with the woman's face, the bushes, obviously, it's the name of the song. They'd have to be included in there somehow. Never really thought of the honky tonk woman. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that one.
If I'm entirely honest, I don't really have one. It's a distinct character that is mentioned that is entirely and utterly unfleshed out. If I manage to think of an idea while we're rolling, I'll kind of give you a heads up. But I think I can't really think of anything because it's literally a line. But she'd probably love to honky tonk.
Yeah, she'd probably love to honky tonk.
That's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think we agree that the main draw here is, or maybe we do disagree. I would say it's the chicken duck woman thing waiting for us is the main attraction rather than the actual title, the bushes. Would you say that's fair?
That is fair, yeah. That one is probably the easiest one to interpret as well, because you've got something that you can make. I don't want to say into flesh because obviously that's not the case, but it is something that you could bring to life in your games. That is probably one of the yeah. Before I waffle, just yes, the monster is the biggest draw.
Okay, so I guess the biggest question is what do we see the monster as? What is the monster? I think you've got some things in that kind of area in your notes.
Yeah, so how it looks is inconsequential. We know how it looks, and you could embellish that as much as you want. And it's pretty well it's not well described, but it gives you some elements anyway. So there's it had a chicken. It had a. I can't remember how it had chicken.
It had a chicken's legs with duck's feet and a woman's face too.
That's right.
So yeah.
So yeah, it would need to be. I mean, how you do this is entirely up to yourself. It's the question of would you rather fight 1 million horse-sized ducks or 1 million duck-sized horses? So is it a little monster? Is it a small monster? And then you have to think then how you would, and obviously the game and system that you're playing it within would dictate how you would do this, but what sort of health would it have? Does it have special attacks? I mean, I would think from what it said, it would probably have some sort of special attack which rips a face.
Yes, because that is our only real insight into the damage it causes is that it allegedly, in the continuity of the bad lip reading video, this creature ripped Luke Skywalker's father's face off.
Yeah,
that's the only real solid description of its capabilities that we have.
Would it cause bleeding damage as well? Because another glimpse into the as you say, the continuity of the song is, in fact, there was a huge mess. We had to change the floors, And then he goes on to explain that he bled so much they had to actually remove the floorboards. So is it mainly bleeding damage and things like that, you know?
So obviously, if someone was to have their face removed, that would cause a lot of bleeding. Are you saying that you think it also indicates that there's I've forgotten what it's called. Is it anticoagulant? As in,
it,
animals have it where they make you bleed more.
it is an anticoagulant, but I think mosquitoes have got a very posh, specific word for it. Another sort of vampiric creatures, yeah. So yeah, you and I could sit here and hash out a 5th edition one all day. You know, we could easily knock something out. We could think of all sorts of different qualities and things like that it could possess. Hence the whole bleeding thing. That's a condition that can be provided in 5th edition. But that's not going to butter any parsnips, really, because it needs to sort of be system agnostic. So I thought it's best to try and focus on what we do know and how that would then interpret itself, or how that could be interpreted rather in the different systems, so that people can go away and make their own. It's easy for us to just upload a character sheet or a bestiary sheet for this chicken duck thing with the woman's face. But, you know, what's the point? I think half of the fun would be for you to actually do this. The song is, would we say it's comedic, or is it, how would you describe it?
I would say that the song is comedic, yeah.
So yeah, if you were going to base it solely on the source material, why not embellish things, you know, and be hyperbolic and be ridiculous with it?
Okay, so on a just kind of the last bit of the monster, because for people just to be a bit prepared, the systemized section is probably actually going to be the longest one on this episode, I think, maybe, because I've got a lot of system specific ideas. But one thing I'm interested is, so you said about the one horse-sized duck or 10 duck-sized horses. What was your initial thoughts? Are you having one large thing or lots of little tiny? Basically, are they the size of chickens or are they humongous?
Well, again, that leads me down an even bigger path then, an even longer path, because there's a line that says, "We all got a chicken duck woman thing waiting for us." So should there be one per character or party member?
Oh, I've got some thoughts for that. We'll get that to a second. So I'm just saying, if we take it completely at face value, is this thing huge or is it tiny? I just want your
get reaction huge. Yeah. Because I think what he pointed out was he thought it was behind a scrap pile, but it was a cow. So I'm thinking, you know, horse-sized duck or cow-sized duck, something that stands to my shoulder. Because I don't know why I think because the word or the noun duck is first, effectively. Chicken duck? No, it's not. I don't know why, but duck seems to stick in my head more. So I think it's the body of a duck with chicken's feet, and the duck's neck, and then sort of the top head of a duck with then no bill. So you know when is it Daffy? Yeah, Daffy Duck always gets shot, and then he's got either the bill on the back of his head or whatever. That. But instead of just sort of a straight up and down flat face, I picture it then as a woman, and, you know, insert generic woman face. That's just how I picture it in my mind. Is that, how do you picture it then when you're hearing it? What does your mind come to?
The same. I hadn't even thought of making them regular chicken sized, but I now quite like the idea of them being regular chicken sized. If you're leaning into the comedy aspect, that's it's got shades of Monty Python to me. If there's this deadly chicken creature that's actually just the size of a regular chicken, it's got that kind of what's it? Not Life of Brian.
You're
I've literally drawn a blank.
you're picturing the rabbit of Caer Bannog.
Yes, there we go.
So
From Holy Grail, yeah.
yeah, so a very, very small but immediately vicious, deadly, it's effectively one shot, one kill, really, isn't it? It's the Tom Berenger of the rabbit world.
Yes. Yeah, so I definitely thought when you mentioned how big it is, it hadn't even occurred to me to make it small, but that would be if I was leaning into a ridiculous angle, yeah, make it small. Play with the players' expectations a bit, because players who don't know what you're doing, if you say there's this small chicken-sized thing, obviously depending on your and this is again is in a kind of traditional D&D type game, depending on the dynamic your group has, I think even people who have a very adversarial relationship with their GM would still think something that looked like a chicken would be relatively harmless. I'm sure there's loads of people out there going that nope, everything that anyone describes is, a deadly hazard as far as I'm concerned. But I do think making it regular chicken sized is an opportunity to play with it, with expectations.
Yeah, I agree. Another reason why I didn't want to just go out, or rather rethought my idea of going out and just making the character sheet, is because the size of the beast can be put up for interpretation as well. I think we've been conditioned, certainly you and I, we play a lot of tabletop war games. The final boss, or the biggest boss on the table, is usually represented by the biggest model or the biggest miniature as well. And we've been conditioned to assume size equating with danger and obviously the level of its power. So to flip that on its head and then have a small chicken just getting, I mean, obviously this is a horrendous thing. I mean, I don't imagine you're going to come about these quite often in whatever setting you're playing in. A duck's body, as I imagine it, with chicken's feet and a woman's face. I mean, that would induce just fear, and it would turn me sick, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's definitely got. There's something unsettling about it when you think of it outside of the context of the amusing and catchy song.
And to think it only came about because that's what the lips look like is being said as well.
Yeah.
That's basically where they come from. So yeah, how you make it look again is up to interpretation. How I envision it is probably different to yours, but even then, there can be things that can be changed just to suit your own needs. Make it small. But as to the question of, because again, that would be with if you were making it small, would you make it like how to put it? Would you make it sort of a like a meat shield where it's overwhelming numbers, so it's weak but many? How would you describe that?
So you mean like it's a legion, a swarm?
A legion, swarm. I want to say Zerg Rush, but that's very specific. Why wouldn't there be more than one? Is it one for just the player characters? One for person with brown hair? Is it one for males? Or one for everyone on the world or planet, galaxy, universe, whatever the case is?
That's kind of what I was going to push us back to after I kind of pulled you away from your point earlier. That line of "we all got a chicken duck woman thing waiting for us." That line of "we've all got one waiting for us." I think there's a lot of interpretation you can do on that, because it doesn't even have to actually be the chicken duck woman thing is it the same to all people? Is the chicken duck woman thing just the thing that because you could take it if you go for something like the Skywalker saga, the Star Wars, which obviously is where the lip reading came from, is the chicken duck woman thing, does it hunt the Skywalker bloodline? Is that why it killed Anakin and is coming for Luke too? Or, and like you say, does everyone have an individual one? Or is this, is it a psychological demon? What's on that? The idea that we've all got one.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's waiting for us. What's to say that it isn't? It's corporeal until eventually it becomes material. What's to say that? This one now is the real sort of train of thought one. I mean, if we've all got one waiting for us, what's to say that it's not similar to there was, let me think, Red Dwarf had Legion, where or was it Legion? There was one beast in it anyway, whereby it manifested itself as what the person wanted to see. So what's to say that Obi-Wan saw a chicken head, a duck head with chicken feet and a woman's face, whereby Anakin saw something else, or Luke will, or in fact, the cow that Luke dismisses is the thing that's coming for him. It could be then where it's like Pennywise from It, whereby it sort of feeds off your fears, so it produces or manifests itself in that one particular thing in order to amp up your fear and taint the meat.
Yeah, so although we said it's a comedic song, when you were asking, would I make it comedic? I do think that if you take that if you take the most sinister interpretation of "We've all got one waiting for us," you can make it quite a sinister and dark. You can take it in quite a sinister and dark direction, I think, without adding anything from outside. You can take that line, and it's just a line. It's still just using the line from the song, but you can just interpret it in an incredibly dark way.
So would you play this game or that form of game with people to be able to actually use their phobias or fears against them? Obviously, not de-traumatize them, but for example, would you, if someone was arachnophobic, have it look as a spider to that one player and their character, because not that I would say that there's any bleed, but oftentimes people will see that and react as they would as a person, and that would sometimes then inform their character's decisions. Like if you were a player and I were to put forward the physical manifestation of unconditional human love, would that cause you to balk a little?
My general kind of thoughts on horror or anything extreme, kind of the extreme genres, is yes, either do it with people you know well, not necessarily just because you can push their buttons, but they can. Their horror is something where there needs to be a certain level of trust, i.e., you need to be able to go far, but know when to pull up, and you need to know that the people around you are willing to tell you when it's time to pull up. So horror is not really a genre I would try and do amongst people I don't know. Would I then tailor it to their fears? I honestly don't think I would, actually, because I think that would. Yeah, I don't think that's something I would do. I would go for my own sense of horror, and it might fall flat. But I think if you go for phobias that you know, people will see it coming.
Couldn't you then blindside them then by having lots of little things of that phobia? Maybe it wouldn't work as well with spiders because that's just as creepy. Tiny, tiny little spiders. But if someone's phobia was water, then why not have a little thimble of water? Ooh.
Maybe, but in terms of the direct kind of taking that line and following it to taking it to its most darkest assumption, that's not something I would do without people who were aware that that's what we were doing. Okay, so other than the monster, we have the bushes, the bushes of love, the title. What are the bushes of love? What are they? And why is this creature waiting? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the motivation and the why it's waiting, maybe it's an ambush predator, but again, that is all up to you, the GM's interpretation of how you want the story to go. Can it be a nice little diversion or distraction from an ongoing campaign? Depending on how the campaign is going, yes. I mean, there wouldn't be any particular reason why there couldn't just be a little bit of comic relief in between certain sections in the downtime.
Yeah, but the actual bushes themselves, I don't.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. But it's like it depends then how you would interpret that. So, for example, are these bushes of love like the Triffids, for example? You know, so it depends on the nature of the campaign and how you're going to play it, whether or not you're doing it as a campaign or whether you're doing it as a one shot. I mean, I typically imagine it would be done as a one shot because it's fairly, like you say, a closed loop. There's something that needs to be stopped or numerous things that need to be stopped. You go, you stop them, and that's the end of that. You know, and then it's the end, ... question mark. You know, it's one of those. I don't see much of a twist ending beyond that, to be honest with you. So yeah, how you would then get the bushes included in it is entirely up to yourself and how the story is going. Like say, is it like a Triffid where the bushes are also a monster or an enemy? Would they be violent? I mean, it's difficult to interpret them as the sort of the tree from Evil Dead. I wouldn't want to walk that path, to be honest.
But you'd make the bushes like an active participant. They're not a location to you. They're a character, a threat.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, there's lots of different ways of looking at it. They could be a location. It could be, for example, say, like Tyranids have from the 40k universe have biopools in which they sort of tend to spawn from on certain occasions. Is it the spawn point of that? Is it? Oh God, I dread to think about it. It's one of the worst films. But is it like The Happening, where it's actually a hallucinogen from the pollen from the bushes of love, and the name is there to subvert your actual, or to make you think, oh, the bushes of love, they're lovely, they're great. But in actuality, they're making you hallucinate and see these things. And the tearing of the faces was actually more of a human reaction because they see each other as these things. You could do that.
Yeah, and there is the Man of Medan twist. I don't know if you know the story of that, but basically it was a ship that had a chemical. I forgot the name of it. So everyone went nuts and assumed that all these crazy things were happening, but it was actually just all the people on the ship attacking each other because they all thought each other were zombies and things like that.
Yeah, so that's my point. There is it can be a location, in which case, great, make it a location, pure and simple. And the opposite of sentient is
not sentient. I don't know.
so it's not they're not sentient. They're inanimate.
Unsentient.
They exist. And like I say, they could be a location.
Yeah,
they
'cause
could be their layer.
Because my initial, my kind of first snap reaction was the Bushes of Love would be a location. Basically an area that was used for wedding ceremonies or something like that in a local village. As in that they had, it's part of their local courtship rituals. If you're doing like a fantasy setting, I don't think you'd use the word courtship if you're doing a sci-fi.
So like oftentimes you'll see roundabouts that have been decorated with flowers. So it would be something along those lines, but without the roads, obviously.
Yeah, and it would be an accepted risk that they get married in these bushes of love, but some people get ripped to shreds, and that would be my hook: is that the player character and say, people who get married get ripped to shreds. What's going on? What? Forbidden teenage thing, sneaking off at night to go to the bushes of love, but because that would require the victims to then be teenagers, some people might want to kind of move away from that, because although and they're not adults, but that's edging close to child death, which is something that lots of people want to avoid.
So with them being a location, are there any other ideas that you could come to with a location which would use the bushes? Is there anything else that you could think of?
Just overgrowth, just an indication of an area of overgrowth, basically. An area of difficult, rough terrain.
What about, for example, a hedge maze? Just an innocuous, inconspicuous, playful hedge maze. That's why people go in. In the middle, you steal a kiss, and then you've got to find your way out again. Anyone of any age could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you've got to think, who owns the maze? Who made it? Does the creature have like a Renfield type? Is there someone who maintains the maze, keeping the creature in there? Bushes of love, because he knows that a couple of them will get eaten and feed the beast.
Yeah, you could have it like that, where it's a seasonal tradition where people go in, run in, get a kiss, and then run out, and they're the ones that are destined to be married. But sometimes people never come out because it's such a big maze. No one has ever really managed to find the four edges of it or something like that. So it's an accepted fact that people don't make it in. You could make it mysterious as well, whereby was it Dungeon Crawl Classics, whereby I think it was a one-shot free RPG day where once every blue moon the light shines specifically on a door, and the door leads into an otherwise unseen tower or castle.
Yeah, that is a tower under the starlight or something like that. I've forgotten the name of it, but yes, it was because they tended to have a couple. But yeah, it's included in most versions of the Dungeon Crawl Classics Quick Start, which is usually given out on free RPG Day.
So yeah, there's nothing wrong with having that. with that mystical, magical element to it, people just accept it. Maybe it is a Renfield character, but he or she is only there when the maze is not visible.
Yeah, and then that also gives you a secondary plot hook, because in theory the real villain of the piece would in fact turn out to be not the creature, but the person who's looking after it and feeding people to it.
That is an interesting concept that's worth exploring. With the new Ravenloft book that's due to come out, I believe Ravenloft is a separate. They call them planes in the Forgotten Worlds, but you could say it's a different dimension that maybe at a certain time of day, or a certain cosmological conjunction, in that the veil of life from one dimension to the other is thinnest, and that's how the maze is accessed. I said that's strange. Accessed. So yeah, then you could take some references from that. What's to say that beyond, in the maze realm, that it isn't like Ravenloft, a world of dark and horrid place? Read the book, find out.
Cool. So, there's not a lot to draw from, but we got quite a bit out of that. So I'm going to forego my usual question of where do the players go, because there's so little form, you don't have to worry about it. You know where the players go anywhere. I'm going to answer my usual question with that. The players go anywhere. End of story.
God damn, you've just made me think. What's to say the players aren't the chicken leg with duck feet woman's face?
So you do a flip round, and they're creatures who are hunting
Because they're hungry. They're just mama duck, baby duck, and daddy duck. Cousin and uncle, depends on how many people you've got. But they're just doing their business. Why are they being hunted? Very much a village attacks concept there. Village Attacks, the board game where you are the monsters and the village are the antagonists.
Yeah, I have no comment on that, because that is something I had not even dreamed of considering that. I had not even begun to consider dreaming that I may dream that I considered that idea. But I like it, and I think we wouldn't be well suited with hashing it out on the podcast. I think, but that might be something worth coming back to. I like that.
Just came to me now. So yeah, to conclude, basically, what I would suggest is to go away and listen to the song, maybe once or twice. Pick out the lines that stick most with yourself, and then let your imagination run wild with them, really. Because that's what I've done. I don't know what your process is, but I've listened to it a couple of times, heard what sort of stuck out the most to me, and then sat down looking at the lyric and let that sort of guide me. And that's why I can't really give a single definitive answer to any one thing, is because I'm only giving advice here on how to produce the game, rather than actually telling you this is the game I've made, play it. There's so many different avenues you could follow. So that would be my process, and that would be what I would suggest for you guys to do. Any of you listening out there, is there a different process that you followed? Is it pretty much the same for you?
Pretty similar. I don't think. I just listened to it and let my mind go where it was going to go. Yeah, I didn't really have a process. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm still talking, because I'm not adding anything of value. But
well, you did say that my
sentence.
You did say a lot of your points were heavily implied or were going to come through from the systemized side of things. So shall we move on? I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Systemize.
Okay, yeah, I said that Systemize might be the longest, but I think that might be a bit of a lie. I'm sorry, listeners, because we got a lot. We managed to we managed to get a lot out in the mechanized phase that I uh, thought might kind of bleed into Systemize, and we'd have a whole mess of deciding what went where. But yeah, so my first thought was D&D Finder, a simple hunt the monster. Village. Uh, you know, say there's the monster over there, and you go hunt it. The chicken duck woman thing waiting for you is just a high CR monster. It's just a monster hunt. And I like the idea of the hedge maze. Have it at because you can use the hedge maze as a dungeon, but also a hedge maze and tracking a creature, especially in um, fifth edition, particularly. I don't know enough. I don't know enough about Pathfinder 1 or 2 to say, but a lot of people think that rangers don't get people don't think that rangers get a lot of chance to shine. So having it just track down the monster and find it also gives any rangers a chance to basically do what rangers do. Secondly, if I was going with the more dark interpretation, I'd do Call of Cthulhu, and it be all about the investigation and the the ritual and stuff to do with the bushes and how they do. This is where I would emphasize that it was part of a marriage ritual or something. And the duck
Okay.
woman, the duck woman creature would be a representative of the mythos type thing. It would be the strange, unknowable creature, and it would be all about discovering the weird cult like because you could stick Children of the Corn. Maybe they sacrifice some of the young couples in order for harvest, to be good.
All right. So maybe they have a special bush, and they call it the bushes of love, ironically, because it's actually newlyweds' sacrificial blood that they have to anoint it with, to summon forth the old one's representation, which happens to be a chicken duck thing with woman's face. And that would be the end game breaker. There is if they manage to stop that from happening, or at least stop its summoning, and that would be the victory condition. Whereas it being summoned, you're in for a bad time.
Yeah. But my ultimate winner of the system I would like to use for this is the Powered by the Apocalypse system, Monster of the Week, because I think that allows me to combine both ideas. Because Monster of the Week, the idea is that there is a monster you do hunt and defeat the monster of the week, but it does emphasize investigation. So I would make it that I would kind of smush the two together. I would use Monster of the Week, and I would take elements of everything we've discussed and make a what I think would be quite a fun adventure. But yes, I'd use Monster of the Week to kind of combine all the ideas we've discussed. I know some people will be like a jack of all trades is a master of none, but that's my gut feeling is I'd use Monster of the Week to make this adventure that drew from everything we've discussed and kind of took a bit of darkness, a bit of humor, a bit of light, a bit of dark, a bit of fighting, a bit of investigating. I'd make something that encompassed everything we've discussed.
Jog my memory a second then. Character creation for Monsters of the Week. You pick a name, and then is that the one where you have to say choose a relationship to the person to your left? Or is that the one where you write little things and you put it in the middle and then you've got to... Or is that, am I thinking Kids on Bikes?
I think you're thinking Kids on Bikes. Monster of the Week is you have the playbooks, so you do pick a class, as it were. But yes, you do also... You have each class or playbook, as they call it, has a selection of relationships. So you will go like, as in, pick a player at the player, and it will be something like, this player has betrayed you. Describe how they betrayed you in the past.
I remember how we played it now. I believe there's the option for different, I suppose, monster afflictions to yourself. I believe I played a werewolf. Was that Monster of the Week?
Yes, because that is a playbook called The Beast, I think, where you are a monster yourself.
Yes, I remember that entirely. I was a famous knight, real world knight, who we've spoken about today, in fact, who was also a werewolf.
We've spoken about today. I'm...
Yes, I did an impression of him over WhatsApp today.
Oh, David Attenborough.
Now we've got to pay him money for using his name. Yes, I played David Attenborough with lycanthropy. So yeah, that's where the silliness of that system comes into, I suppose. I just wanted to remind myself, because whether it would allow you to, again, flipping it on its head, whether that system would allow you to be the chicken duck thing with a woman's face, as much as it could be David Attenborough, the werewolf.
But yeah, so anything from you on the system front?
Well, yeah, I mean, I looked at your notes and I tried to think of things that were different, just to expand further on what we have. Kids on Bikes is very similar to Monster of the Week, but given that you've already sort of said you want to try and move away from the death of youths, and I guess it would be expected, really, given the fact that you're up against this very dangerous face-ripping monster.
Though I know you've only played we played a it's not playtest, but like a showcase adventure of Kids on Bikes. Kids on Bikes does have rules for creating adult characters, so you can use the system. That's perfectly fine, even if you're avoiding child death. It
is mildly the same to Monster of the Week, though, in certain aspects. But yeah, it's more a case of the because that's what led me to think about what I was actually going to be doing and what would be best, is the mortality rate of it all, and how, whereas Fifth Finder actually makes you quite robust as a character. You can tank a lot of damage, whereas this, I mean, the interpretation of the song for me is that Luke's father is dead.
Yeah,
that's my interpretation of it, which means that I would aim for things with a little bit more character death, or the likelihood and mounting pressure and danger. So again, Call of Cthulhu, like yourself, that's actually quite a sort of a well-balanced game. White Wolf's Hunter series as well, so that's you're going to tell me now, that's the blue book, isn't it?
I don't know what color the book of Hunter is. Blue is the core rule book.
This one's a black and green one, but there's two ones. There's Hunter the Vigil and Hunter the...
I've lost track of what is what, so...
There's another Hunter one anyway. So, yeah, one of those. Anyway, things are moving along. We're too old for this now. So, yeah, that along there. Again, just taking it from my aspect, whereby it was more of a psychological thing, where it was playing on your fears and slowly but surely draining you, then the Hunter series certainly would assist with that, because you're charting sort of a mental decline, or the stress levels taking a toll. on your mental decline as well. So that would be a good way of doing it with having the mounting pressure there. If you're just going to go balls to the wall comedy though, and really ham it up, Fiasco. We've named it several times before, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to play it that one time at Dragon Meet. I think it was just maybe we had a flash in the pan, really. I don't know, but yeah, I think we made gold from lead. To be honest, that game was great. It was comedic. We had a laugh with it. And it could lead well to something where you're really sort of hamming it up and having a load of old nonsense where people are mistaking chicken duck things with women's faces for cows behind scrap metal piles.
Yeah, it would be more. It would be leaning heavily on the humor, and Fiasco is great. It could be fun. I think once we've got people who listen multiple times, that should be a thing we ask. Will Rod suggest Fiasco?
Yes, mark that on your Adventurise bingo card, kids.
Yeah.
Fiasco has been mentioned again.
Summarize.
So we've talked about it. We've not been able to really put meat on the bones because there's just so many different angles to take away.
Yeah, it's when you do something that's as abstract as this, you kind of have there's as many ideas that you can take from outside the source as you can from inside. You can, yeah.
So would you want to try and piece together an actual coherent adventure for this as a GM?
Yes, I think this would be fun. I would like to run it as a Monster of the Week one shot. It would be very cool. I'd make it. It would be light-hearted with a serious narrative thread. It wouldn't be like a cartoon. It would be very much like an episode of the earlier series of Buffy before it got kind of more serious long story arcs. Again, not when they're doing long story arcs, but the more Monster of the Week style episodes of Supernatural. I think it would be it would make a very nice Monster of the Week one shot, Buffy Supernatural style.
Yeah, I could see that actually. Yeah, because Supernatural certainly is they act it serious, but there are elements of buddy cop action in there. Little winks and nudges, maybe breaks of the fourth wall where they would say or do something. Would you play it?
I would have to see because it's so vague, as we've discussed. I would have to hear whoever was running it. I'd want to hear I'd want to hear their pitch, and then it would ultimately depend on the pitch. But what I would say is, if someone said, "Look, I've made a game based on Bushes of Love," I'd give them the time to give me the pitch. So,
So you'd be in at the table, and then I hand out the fatal rules, and then you suddenly excuse yourself and leave.
yeah, but basically, I'd be interested to see what they were doing. But if it sounded weird, I'd maybe politely decline.
As for myself, I don't know. It depends on the mood that I'm in, really, and whether or not you caught me in a funny mood, whether or not I've had a Red Bull or whatever. Some days you just want to enjoy the song, but then other ones, then you're like, yeah, I'm pumped for this. I want to be in the song. I want to do the song, or at least the odd line or two which actually has any story or relevance to it. And obviously the chorus. I suppose to sum up my feelings on it, ultimately, yes, I would play, but I'm not in a rush.
I think that's a fair assessment of what we've discussed. And yeah, I've got nothing else to add. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for listening. And you can tell us how much you are disappointed with our knowledge of White Wolf's various names of games, by contacting us at the social media links in the show notes.
Thank you very much, guys, and we will speak to you next week. Please engage with us. It'd be great to be able to actually have something to respond to.
So that was our episode on
Bushes of Love.
Hope you got some good ideas out of it. So next time you need something that inspires you, you won't just theorise, but adventurize. And if you do, please let us know. All the links to socials found in the show notes. And we'll catch you next time.